Chairman Chung,
Here.
Vice Chair Caruth, Director Bartlett,
Here.
Director Ferguson,
Present.
Director Hack,
Here.
Director Davies,
Here.
Director Martinez, Director Monahan, Director Piotr,
Here.
Director Sachs,
Here.
Director Schofel, Director Shea,
Yes.
Director Spitzer, Director Ward, Director Chamberlain, and I believe we have the alternate for Mr. Director Monahan, Mr. Jim Righeimer.
Here.
And now we'll do the roll call for Foothill. Chairman Young,
Here.
Vice Chair Bartlett,
Here.
Director Beal,
Here.
Director Ferguson, Director Crane,
Present.
Director Crane, Director Martinez, Director Murphy,
Here.
Director Nelson, Director Puckett,
Here.
Director Sachs,
Here.
Director Mueller,
Here.
Director Shea,
Yes.
Director Spitzer, Director Voigt,
Here.
Director Ward, Director Chamberlain. You have a full quorum.
Terrific, thank you. So that brings us to item number 2, public comments. Do we have any members of the public who wish to speak?
I believe we're going to do the oath. No? Oh, perfect. No, we don't. We don't have any members of the audience.
Okay, terrific. That brings us to Roman numeral 3, the consent calendar for the San Joaquin Hills. That's items number 1 through 3 for San Joaquin Hills. Do we have any items which need to be pulled or a motion?
Move to approve.
We have a motion. Who gave the motion? Oh, Piotr, motion, and second by Vice Chair Caruth. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you. That brings us to item Roman numeral 4, consent calendar for Foothill Eastern. Do we have a motion on the consent calendar?
Move the calendar.
So we have a motion from Director Puckett and a second from Director Voigt. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you. So this brings us to Roman numeral 5, our joint board business, number 7. And so these are joint items to be voted by both boards. And our investment banking services presented by Amy Potter. Good morning, Ms. Potter.
Good morning. This item is a request for an approval to appoint an investment banking team. This item was presented to the Joint Finance and Investment Committee on March 23rd, and 3 members of that committee participated in the interviews and the selection process. And after discussion with the committee unanimously voted to recommend approval to the board today on this item. So the investment bankers will work with the agency as well as the agency's financial advisor to develop investment transactions to related to our existing debt as well as our capital improvement program. And they will also assist us with our credit rating upgrade strategy as well as our investor relations. Next slide. There is no compensation requested with this item today. The compensation will be limited to future financing transactions. Those amounts would be negotiated along with our financial advisor and then brought through the Joint Finance and Investment Committee and then to this board for approval. A request for statement of qualification was posted on our electronic procurement system for a senior banking team. We received 8 proposals, as you see listed here. Next slide. The proposals were evaluated based on the experience of those firms, their demonstration knowledge, and also their distribution capabilities with marketing and selling the bonds, and also the recommendations related to both our existing debt structure and future capital financing transactions. So based on the evaluation of those proposals, the top 5 firms were shortlisted for interviews, as you see here. Next slide. The interview panel consisted of the 3 staff and the agency's financial advisor that had evaluated the proposals, as well as the 3 board members, as I had mentioned. The board members were provided with a summary of those proposals, as well as the actual proposals to review. And the firms were asked to focus on the following areas for their interview. And that was their strategies related to the current debt structures, their credit rating and investor strategies, as well as their capital improvement funding ideas. Based on the evaluation of those interviews, the top 4 firms were selected and recommended for approval as part of the team. So with that, next slide. We are recommending approval today of the selection of Bank of America Merrill Lynch, Barclays Capital, Goldman Sachs and Company, and JP Morgan Securities to provide investment banking services for 5 years and up to 3 one-year extension options. And that concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Ms. Potter. Do we have any?
Are we selecting 2 or 4? What are we supposed to be doing at this juncture?
We are selecting a team of senior bankers
Right.
who will then work with us and develop financing transactions. And when we develop a transaction that's ready to be brought back to the board for approval, we will select one of those firms to serve as the lead, so the book runner. The presumption is that they would all be seniors, and depending on the size and complexity of the transaction, we may also issue another RFP for co-managers, and those co-managers would just market and sell the bonds as we've done on past transactions. So it just depends on the size and complexity of a transaction that we would bring forth
So
to
at
you.
this moment, we are selecting 4.
Yes.
Is that correct?
That is correct.
Chair, Vice Chair Bartlett, and then Mr. Reheimer.
I was a member of the Joint Finance and Investment Committee and part of the selection committee for this particular item. And the top 4 firms are really outstanding firms and really stood out from the best. We interviewed, I believe, the top 5. And these 4 firms were just head and shoulders above the other firms. So I think it's a great selection, and I would make a motion to approve these 4.
Second.
And Director Rickheimer, you have a comment?
Yeah, I'm just concerned about how do we, I've never seen it where you don't have a lead. And I'm understanding the concept that there's 4 people floating out there and they're kind of deciding and they're all senior. Who makes that decision who's going to be the lead?
The lead will be determined based on their participation in developing a specific transaction, as well as the performance and the services that they provide. And so it is expected that we may have several transactions that need to be brought to the board throughout this term of this contract. And so based on that performance, then myself as well as our financial advisor would make that determination to present to the board for approval.
So we're going to have staff and an outside advisor on every separate transaction decide who's going to be the lead.
Make a recommendation to the
You'll make a
board.
recommendation, you'll have one recommendation, you'll bring it to us, and then we're just going to say no, go to the number 2? Have we ever done that?
I believe that in the last transactions, we actually had joint book runners on our large refinance transactions, and I believe the boards unanimously approved it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay with it. It just seems a board here. This is hundreds of millions, billions of dollars. The points and the cost is big dollars, and I always get concerned when it's off on some private, consultants and staff to decide who gets it. Down to the level of a city council, I worry about when the planning commission gives too much to staff approval for projects, because people have to work with you every single day, and you want to make sure that just in transparency that it's not favored for different people. But I'm fine with the motion.
Vice Chair Bartlett?
Well, what I would recommend, and I think we did this, I was very much involved in the $2.3 billion refinancing on Foothill Eastern and the selection panel again. And I think what I might recommend is just wait until the transaction comes up before, whether it's San Joaquin or Foothill, and then at that point have the 4 firms present to the Joint Finance and Investment Committee. They can give the details of what they would provide in that particular transaction, and then maybe have the investment committee collectively figure out which, depending on the size of the transaction, we may need 1 senior or we might need 2 seniors. But get all of that input and then have the Finance and Investment Committee report back and make a recommendation to the full board.
Well, we would certainly bring it through the committee.
Yeah.
So,
But I think to have the committee involved in the process then, and then, because the board members are part of the committee, and I think that would give Jim some level of confidence then that we've got some board members involved in the selection process, and then to have the Joint Finance and Investment Committee actually make that recommendation for the senior or 2 seniors for that particular transaction back to the board. Because we're at the committee level, we're going to get all the information about what they're going to charge, who the senior team members are going to be, and you want that comfort level before it comes back to the board. But I think some of the board members might want some additional board member input into that process, so that would satisfy that.
and actually what I would envision is as we come close and we are starting to work on developing a transaction, because I would envision that all 4 firms are going to participate in the development of a transaction, that we would then be bringing that transaction in the process through the committee. So you would be involved throughout the entire development of the process and see the participation of the firms.
Right, but I think what Jim's alluding to is to make sure that the board members on the committee and the committee as a whole is involved, not only in the getting all of the information from the 4 firms, but then helping to mold the process a bit and make that determination and recommendation back to the full board along with staff for the senior or co-senior or whatever we want to do in the transaction. Is that correct, Jim? Is that what you were trying to get at?
You're hitting it exactly on the head.
Okay.
I mean, all 4 are going to work together,
Yes.
and how do they get compensated? Do they get paid to work together? Do they get paid when the transaction happens? What happens when you have four separate groups out there and everybody's kind of the same? Competition has issues. I mean, you start to wonder why we all fight each other. We're all going to divide this pie up evenly. Those are just, I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm saying just the concerns that happen when everything's kind of just leveled out and everybody's all there and everybody's putting their hand out. You want to make sure there's proper transparency. You want to make sure there's proper competition. And just sometimes just saying everybody's going to work together and somehow nobody's getting compensated for this work. Obviously, they're going to get compensated. They got to pay staff and people. Those are things I'm not hearing. So what I think we're talking about here is, yeah, fine, you might get to this level, pick the 4, but it should be a committee with board members that say, who's bidding what, how much are they doing it, what's the cost going to be, and then those people who have the expertise come back to the board and say, this is why we're picking this person, and not just spread it out amongst everybody. If there's a reason to spread it out amongst everybody, am I missing it? I'm open to that. I just don't know what that is.
And I think, Amy, it's really important too, when we have a transaction, that the committee know exactly who the team members are that would be assigned from the various firms, because that may play into the process as well. You know, obviously we want the strongest team assembled, and those 4 firms would have to designate who those team members are.
Well, I think that's a great suggestion. And then we have Director Sachs with a comment, and then Director Crane, and then Director Shea.
I'll wait till before we vote.
Okay, so Director Crane.
Thank you. Amy, or to Jim's benefit, we did this a couple of years ago because I was on the team that we refinanced the bonds, and they all work together. They all have different strengths. That's why we picked 4 different agencies. And I never saw any competition between them. They wanted to do the best job for the agency. And so they all, some of them are out here in the audience, and they all worked together. And it worked. It was very cohesive. It was very complimentary, and there was no infighting. So,
But somebody was senior, someone got paid more, someone was in charge. It wasn't even across the board.
well, Rich from Barclays, and then Peter from Barclays, and then Rich from, where's Rich? Anyway, there was a team, all the senior people were the transaction actually were working on it in front of us. Now, behind the scenes, they could have had, I'm sure they had subcommittees working that, but the senior people of the teams that we worked with at that time, because Lisa and I were both on that trip, all were working together to coordinate the best deal for the refi.
Yeah,
Vice Chair
Jim,
Bartlett?
yeah, Jim, basically,
I thought it was my.
for the $2.3 billion refinancing on Foothill Eastern, it was such a large transaction that we interviewed the firms and we decided we actually needed to have 2 seniors because of the size of the transaction. So the committee interviewed the firms and based on the strength of the team members and what they were bringing to the table, decided to designate Barclays and Goldman as co-seniors. And then we worked with Amy and designated the other members of the finance team.
And we actually had 4 seniors on that transaction, but Barclays and Goldman were the joint book runners. That's it.
Okay.
And then we had co-managers as well.
Yeah.
And Director Shea, you had a comment or question?
I just wanted clarity because we've been through this and I appreciate Jim's comments, but staff, I mean, we do follow pretty strict protocol. I believe at the end of the day when the bonds are issued, we take it a certain percentage and it's, I mean.
Negotiated and.
Yeah, it's negotiated. We all know about it and nothing's done in the dark around here. We have more committees than God has angels, to be honest with you. And that's good. But to even imply, I hear this at my council member meeting, sometimes one of my council members about transparency, and I agree with that. But you can get to a point you micromanage everything staff does, and that's not our job. We're up here and our staff does this, but we do need to get feedback. But we get great feedback when we go through these transactions. So if we need to have a committee, I don't know, but I think it's worked really well in the past. We're always updated, we're always involved, and, you know, I just don't want to start getting into this where, you know, we're going to have everybody, you know, climbing in people's closets looking at their checkbooks. So as long as we can have those updates to make sure that we understand the financial breakdown once these are approved. Right, Mike? I mean, can I turn to you and get some confirmation here?
Yeah, I mean, the process that we have, and what's unique about what we're doing here is we are selecting our team of seniors, and it's the appropriate size for the seniors that we're selecting. But we have at least three deals that we're going to be doing with this team over the period of this contract, and the time for choosing the leadership is with the deals. And
right, and then we always bring it back.
The finance committee exists for the purpose of working through all of this with us, and then when each deal comes to the board for approval.
Thanks, Mike. Thank you.
And then we have a comment from Vice Chair Cruz before we end back up at Director Sachs.
I have a lot of confidence in this identifying certainly the investment banking team, and it's a very fair process, and I understand Director Righeimer's concerns, but I think it protects this board from becoming political, and so to work together on this I think is a good thing, and to, as we move forward, to identify the book runners at a later time, I think is probably the best.
All right, so thank you. So now, Director Sachs.
First of all, I think it's well documented that I'm not one of God's angels.
That's the sad thing to hear.
It is also well documented that I am not part of the Sachs family at Goldman Sachs.
Can you prove that?
Yes, if I were a member of that family, I wouldn't be here.
What do you think about all of us?
I just wanted to declare that so that I will be voting on this measure. I have no conflict of interest.
So we have a motion. Okay, now forgive me for I'm going to articulate this so I make sure I'm doing this right, because this is a new process for us. We have a motion from Vice Chair Bartlett from from Foothill Eastern.
Yeah.
Oh, she's on both. Okay. And then the second came from Director Hack?
Yeah.
Okay. So the motion is on staff recommendation, or would you like to articulate your motion one more time? Thank you.
The motion is staff recommendation, but with the 4 firms as senior firms, select the 4 firms, but on a per transaction basis, everything will just be run through the Finance and Investment Committee itself. And then from there, we'll do the vetting on finding out what the fees are and appropriate based on the transaction size. If we need 1 book runner or we need 2 book runners, and then the Finance Committee collectively can make a recommendation back to the full board for each transaction.
Okay, so we're all clear on the motion, and then we have a second. Are we short one We need a second from Foothill on this. Okay. So
Foothill
second.
second.
So from Chairman Young. So we have motion and second from both boards. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And any abstentions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So that brings us to item number 8, the signage enhancement design. And Ms. Juliette Sue is going to present that to us. Good morning.
Good morning. The item for you is a recommendation to execute a contract amendment with HDR for Phase 2 of the sign enhancements design to prepare the final plans and obtain an encroachment permit from Caltrans to construct. In December of 2014, the boards approved Phase 1 of this project. The first phase consisted of reviewing the system-wide signs for consistency in how drivers are advised that they're entering a tolled facility and how tolls can be paid. In mid-2015, customer research was performed to test potential changes to signage and develop recommendations based on those consumer preferences. The results included inputs such as customers tended to gravitate towards signs that were simple and clear. Respondents preferred overhead signs to roadside signs. They felt that color was an extremely effective communication tool. We also obtained feedback on specific sign messages, such as consumers preferred the term "or pay online later," as opposed to simply saying "or pay online." The signage recommendations that came out of that research were compared with the California standards, and proposed concepts were developed. We then met with Caltrans and presented our proposed concepts and obtained their concurrence on those proposed concepts. The signs to be modified include approach signs from adjacent facilities, mainline toll point signs, and payment information signs. And the following slides show examples of the proposed concept designs that were approved or concurred with by Caltrans in the Caltrans format. And the actual signs themselves will be individualized at each location. So this is an example of a proposed sign for freeway exits to a toll road. And this particular sign is at the northbound I-5 to northbound State Route 73. And the modifications include adding the purple banner and the yellow toll plaque to designate a tolled facility. This next example is a sign located at a freeway where it turns into a toll road. So this particular sign is the northbound 133, where the 133 tolled portion begins. And again, the purple banner and yellow plaque will be used to designate a tolled facility. And in addition, we'll be adding roadside signs on either side of the sign gantry to indicate that it's the beginning of a toll road. For the payment information signs, we will be modifying the one-time toll message to pay online. And the next steps for the project will be to move forward with the second phase, which is applying the proposed concepts to the sign system-wide and performing the detailed design for each sign that's being modified. We will work with Caltrans to obtain concurrence on that final design package and obtain an encroachment permit to construct. Once completed, we will bring back to the board, or we'll come back to the board to obtain authorization for the construction contract itself. And at this time, staff is recommending authorization to execute a contract amendment with HDR to move forward with the Phase 2 final engineering in the amount of $69,305 for San Joaquin and $86,707 for Foothill Eastern, and an authorization for an additional 5% contingency. And that concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
I'll move that item.
Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna
Thank
say.
you very much for your presentation. Okay, so before we have the motion, I think that Director Ferguson has a comment.
Just a question. If you could go back to where the sign was, the sample sign?
Yes.
Because that's a sign that's on my road. That I encounter quite a bit. Up at the top, it says, or pay online later. Would it not be better to say within 5 days?
Well, we want to make sure that we let the customers know that if they don't have a fast track, the option is to pay online later.
But within 5 days so that they know?
Oh, you mean to add that? I don't think it would fit. It would be too many words, and one of the we will have these signs at every exit point and throughout the routes at intermediate locations, so that people understand that they can.
And I do see those, but I just, knowing the questions that we get,
right.
I don't think you can stamp that too.
I think what we're trying to do is to make sure we give the message, and so we do have the message here, but to add that same message on every pole sign would add a lot of clutter and confusion, so we don't want to put too many messages on each sign.
And as I say, you started out with the idea of consistency, so that would be my choice.
Okay, thank you. And then Dr. Piotr, and then Dr. Davies.
And Mr., can you clarify the design is really what we're doing here is just the design, and what this will do is design every single sign in the system so that we'll have consistency throughout the system, right?
That's correct.
I just wanted to clarify that. And then obviously later we'll be actually constructing it, and then there'll be RFPs, et cetera, for the construction
Correct.
side.
Yeah.
What is the schedule on this as far as the design completion?
So we should complete our final design package in July of this year. We'll then go to Caltrans for the encroachment permit and let the construction contract out. So we're expecting to start construction, if all is approved, in December of this year.
All depends on how fast Caltrans is. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Director Davies?
Yeah, I just want to follow up. I actually like the way you've got this, too much information in the beginning. The fact is we want people to feel comfortable that they can pay later, get them on the toll road. At the end, it'll tell them where they can go ahead and pay. So I actually like this.
Great.
I don't think there's room to put all of this on, too much information.
Right, thank you.
Vice Chair Carew?
I favor this motion. Worked really hard on this. Certainly our ridership is expecting some changes in signage, so I'm really pleased we're moving the process along. I like the simplified message, and I like the additional color that helps us brand what exactly we're doing, so thankful for that.
Thank you. Okay, so now to go back to the motion second, it looks like we had do we have another question or comment? Oh. No? Okay. So we had did we have a motion from Director Davies and a second from Director Piotr? Is that correct? Okay. So then we need a motion and a second from Foothill Eastern. So motion from Director Crane. Okay, and a second from Director Miller. Okay, so now we have motions and seconds from both boards. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And any abstentions? No. Okay, well, the motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Sue. So that brings us to item 9, Pacific Building Boardroom Expansion Project. Good morning.
Good morning. A few months ago, the boards approved this joint meeting concept, and at that time, staff was directed to initiate a project to expand the existing boardroom dais, the platform, and some of the other accoutrements in the boardroom. The conceptual plan that I'm going to show you here is a statement of work and a floor plan, and it describes the basic needs for expanding the boardroom to accommodate these combined meetings. The design-build contractor will use these documents as a basis for design and then work with staff to develop the final project plans. The design-build contractor will then submit these plans to the city for approval and then work with staff to submit the submittals for all the products. And then the plan is to get this built out between one cycle of board meetings. So here's the conceptual floor plan. I want to just go over a few items. You can see the highlighted areas in yellow. So those are the sections that are going to be added to this existing dais. They're going to have 3 more seats on each side. And then we're going to take these modular seats on each side that hold the CEO and the clerk and the graphics artist and turn them perpendicular at the floor level, as you see on the floor plan there. We're going to provide also a wider podium right here with 2 mics. It's a little wider, this one's a little narrow, and it's also going to be completely mobile, so we can move it out of the way if we need to. We're also going to replace all the existing analog AV system with a full digital system to enhance and to correct some of the problems we have with the audio and the video with this analog system. We're also going to install additional monitors, microphones, and cameras in the boardroom, as well as complying with all the ADA requirements that would come with this project. An invitation for bid was advertised and 9 firms expressed interest. 3 contractors attended the mandatory pre-proposal meeting in this room. We received 2 bids. As you can see the numbers there, $163,525, and then the other was $229,400. Wright Construction Services was the lowest responsive bidder here at the $163,525. That bid was responsive in all respects other than an informality of the bidder forgetting to sign the bid bond. Staff consulted with TCA's general counsel who advised that California law allows TCA to rely on the bid bond based on the surety's signature and the power of attorney that accompanied the bond. The bidder's failure to sign the bid bond thus constitutes an informality that TCA may waive. The CEO decided to waive the informality and accept the bid, subject to confirmation by the boards. So the staff recommendation is to adopt the resolutions confirming the CEO's decision to waive the bid informality, to award a contract to Wright Construction Services in the amount of $163,525. We recommend a 25% contingency. This is a fast-moving project, and we're not going to really have the time to come back to the board for additional changes. And then also the contract is shared between the 2 agencies. And you can see the numbers there, $82,000 per agency. So that concludes my report. Do you have any questions?
Thank you. Director Hack.
You know, we vote separately and then sometimes we vote jointly. Is your electronic systems that are being installed capable of dealing with that?
I know that that's part of the board agenda package, the new system that's being installed. I know they're looking into that and they're looking for a solution. That's really not part of this particular project, but I know that...
So nothing you're doing accommodates that? It would have to be something separate and apart in addition to what we're doing?
Yeah, part of the agenda packages.
Good morning, directors. Yes, you have already approved a project in your budget for this year, so we are working on enhancing our overall agenda management system, starting with staff creation of reports all the way up until the board votes. So we are looking for a system that will meet your requirements in terms of the combined or simultaneous meeting and still having a separate vote, even though it's one item.
Are these going to be handheld or is this going to be part of the system as going to be exited?
We are still working through those details, Director, paying careful attention to the cost of certain solutions, but making sure we meet your core requirements.
Fine, thank you.
Vice Chair Bartlett.
Okay, I have a question. I understand that the recommendation of individual iPads, and then I get the bulletproof protection, but on the iPads, is that to be used for in place of a stationary display and or voting, or what are the iPads specifically going to be used for?
The iPads that is one of the concepts we're looking at for your voting capabilities and agenda management. So that is not set in stone at this time, Director. So it was just a concept from some of the firms we were looking at. Again, we're evaluating the options and we will implement a solution to meet your requirements.
Okay, so it could be an iPad solution or that's movable, or it could be a stationary device with a screen and we vote on that.
Or it could be a handheld remote control type thing. I believe that some of you see when when you're at SCAG's meetings. So there are a variety of different solutions out there, and we're working very hard to pick the best most cost-efficient one for our agents.
Okay, yeah, take a look at, SCAG has little handheld devices and you put the card in for each board member. And then OCTA has a new dais with little stationary screens and microphones that are built in for each person. So just, check with the different agencies to see what they have so we can get some of the latest technology and actually you can view it.
Yep.
Director Puckett?
Yeah, just don't make it too complicated because I'd have to have my grandson come and sit with me.
I think your grandson is installing the system for us. Okay. So we don't have any further questions or comments. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, so we have a motion from Director Davies and a second from Director Shea. Do we have a motion from...
So moved.
Okay. Motion from Director Puckett and second from Director Piotr. So it looks like we have motions and seconds from both boards. Okay, seconded both. All right, got that. All right, so we have pie. All right, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you.
Thank you.
That brings us to item number 10, Digital Interactive and Website Services. And Lisa Gans will be presenting this to us. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you. So the item before you today is in reference to contract number K00823 for Digital and Interactive and Website Services with Civic Resources, they're also known as CRG. As background, the tollroads.com is the most used source for all of our account activity, including account maintenance, account signups, and the online toll payment process by our customers. And it's critical for our customer service as well as communications and transparency. In February alone, the website was used to open more than 11,000 accounts and process 64% of our account updates and 89% of the one-time toll payments. The website is also an important tool for our general agency information, including board agendas, the environmental programs, finance and investor information, as well as capital improvement projects. So procurement was conducted in spring of 2013 for the Digital Interactive and Website Services, and CRG was awarded the contract. It was a 3-year contract with 2 one-year options. The third year of the contract ends this year, end of this year, June 30th, 2016. CRG has provided extensive support on website revisions with the conversion to all electronic tolling, and has provided significant expertise on the design and development of the new website with the primary goal to improve the overall customer experience and customer interactions in the online process. The new website actually launched last week on April 5th and incorporated a significant amount of analytics and research to improve the overall process and to simplify the customer experience with a newer design. I wanted to show you the screen grab. I'm not sure if you all have actually gone onto the website yet, but this is a screen grab of the new homepage design. And primarily it included a responsive design, meaning that you can use it on all different types of devices, the tablet, your phone, and also your desktop. And we took significant care to make sure that we did a do no harm, where most of the transactions that people were used to going to weren't difficult to find, and included a new, fresher design. Go to the next slide. This is just a screenshot of the old one-time toll payment process. Much of the information was actually on one page and was a little cumbersome. The new page design incorporated what we heard back from customers related to more of an online shopping experience. We included information that included a progress bar so consumers could identify where they were in the overall process. And to simplify the process, we eliminated a number of steps. The next page is just an inclusion of a new dashboard. This is what the account holders will see. So a lot of the information is actually on one page, and they can do a lot of transactions via this single dashboard. So what I'd like to do, staff is recommending that the first one-year option be approved through June 30th, 2017. CRG has provided excellent service, and the extension will provide continued support maintenance and additional development services to serve our customers and visitors. The staff recommendation includes some funding be authorized for additional work for this fiscal year, as well as funding for the option in FY17. This item was brought to the Joint Communications and Marketing Committee both in January 28th and February 25th, and the committee approved the staff's recommendation. It was also presented to the Joint Toll Operations Committee on March 23rd, and the committee concurred with staff's recommendation. So with that today, I am seeking authorization for the first one-year option on CRG's contracts K00823 for the digital interactive and website services to fund some work, additional work for this year as well as through next year. The total amount is $49,248 for each corridor agency. So with that, I'm open for questions.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
So the last thing you said was it's equally divided between the two agencies, correct?
Correct, and that was because of the revenue. Both agencies bring in generally the same amount of revenue.
Okay, terrific. And then Director Shea.
Yes, thank you. Just a brief comment. Lisa, I want to thank you so much. I know we've been over this, but I'm an advocate against schizophrenic websites. I can't stand to go to a website and everything's just like so crazy. I love how we've just really simplified it. It looks so much easier, simpler, and nicer. So I'm very supportive of this, and I think our committee was as well.
Move staff recommendation.
Motion from Vice Chair Shea and a second from a whole bunch of people down this way, but why don't we say Director Ferguson. So now we are short. Do we need a San Joaquin second?
Yes, I'll second.
Okay, so Director Bartlett is seconding for San Joaquin. So now we have motions and seconds for both agencies. Thank you. From Director Crane, a motion. So now we've got, should we thin this out or are you good with that? You're good with that? Okay, all right. They're both. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And any abstentions? Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Item before you, excuse me, the item before you is a request to increase the contract authorization for the toll system consulting on-call services by an amount not to exceed $1.2 million to support the customer service back office system replacement. TCA is conducting a major procurement for a new customer service back office system. The nature and importance of this procurement requires consultant expertise to ensure the expected outcomes are attained and to leverage the experience and industry knowledge from similar procurements. The toll system consultant will assist staff by providing technical expertise in the areas identified on the slide and also ensure a smooth transition from the legacy system. Traffic Technologies Incorporated was selected as our toll system consultant through a competitive procurement in 2010 and was instrumental in preparing the scope of work and the request for proposals for this procurement. Their broad toll industry experience and in-depth knowledge of TCA's programs and policies uniquely qualify Traffic Technologies to assist the agencies in this procurement. This amendment increases the contract authorization to align with the system procurement work plan. This amendment and board recommendation was discussed and supported by the Joint Toll Operations Committee at our March 23rd meeting. Staff recommends the board authorize the CEO to execute this contract amendment to increase the contract value by $588,000 for the San Joaquin Hills Transportation Corridor Agency and $612,000 for the Foothill Eastern Transportation Corridor Agency, and also authorize a 10% contingency. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Carrier. Vice Chair Bartlett?
Okay, so you're asking for $1.2 million in additional dollars. So with the original contract amount, what was that covering?
The original contract amount covered toll consisting toll consultant services that got us to AET and the preparation of the scope of work for this effort.
Okay, so to now complete what we need to do, are they staffing up or?
Right, now that we have a better idea of the scope of what our replacement system is going to take, their actual tasks are in the scope of work in the board report. Up until this point, we had several different options, and depending on which option we took, defined the level of effort we needed from Traffic Technologies. It's an on-call service, and they have folks that are experienced in multiple different areas. So as we need expertise in a particular area, data migration or file exchange or oversight of testing, we'll rely on the resources that they have.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or a motion?
I'll move staff's recommendation.
So a motion from Director Puckett, a second. Okay.
I'm okay.
Okay, so we have motion from Director Puckett, motion from Director Gowder, second from Director Crane, and second from Vice Chair Carew. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And any abstentions? Okay, so the motion carries. Thank you. Now, item 12 is pulled, is that correct? So we are going to move on to the Chief Executive Officer's report.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, board members. We saw the launch of the new website last week, and you saw the images today, but in addition to that, the new website has allowed us to also launch our rental car initiative, which is a huge step forward to the agency in our efforts to improve the visitor and traveler experience while they're in Orange County and using our roads. So with the new program, which includes now all of the major rental car companies, so at least 95% of the rental car customers in the county will be able to participate in this program, and it's really only the very small, a couple of the really small rental car companies that aren't included. So renters are opted in now when they rent a car, so if they drive on one of the toll roads, the toll is charged to the credit card that they use to rent to the car, so that's all seamless to the renters. Also, our existing Fast Track or Express account customers will have the option to add the rental vehicle to their account, and they can pay the toll that way. And drivers can also pay tolls directly by registering their rental car with the credit card online for the period of the rental in advance of the rental if they want to, for example, avoid the rental car company fee that gets charged. So this is a great step forward because we have, as all of you know, a lot of visitors to Orange County, a lot of rental cars, particularly on the 73. So we're really happy in conjunction with the website to be able to make all of this available to our visitors and customers. So let me move on to traffic and revenue update. So for the San Joaquin Hills Transportation Corridor, and I'm going to preface these words by saying that we had 23 weekday revenue days in March. In the previous year, we only had 22. So the numbers are up because of the growth in traffic, but also because we had one additional strong revenue day weekday. So revenues are up 11% on San Joaquin Hills based on a 7.6% increase in transaction. And on Foothill Eastern, transactions were up 7.5% and revenues were up 10.8%. And just to put into perspective where we're at, we are now hitting monthly traffic numbers that are equivalent to the high months that we saw in the summer of 2007. So we're really back to our pre-recession levels now on the road. So that's my report.
Good news. Thank you, Mr. Craman. Do we have any director's reports? None? Okay. So our next item is,
I forgot one other thing, sorry. I just wanted to remind everybody that we do have a special board meeting next week on Wednesday, April 20th, which is going to be our annual budget workshop. We're going to do the workshop jointly this year, and we'll hold that in the boardroom next week. And then in May, the board meetings for May, we're going to go back to 2 regular meetings. So we will have a 9 o'clock start for San Joaquin Hills in May and a 10:30 start for Foothill Eastern in May, because we have to do, with the business we have in May, we're required to do regular board meeting. And then in June, when we come back and we approve the calendar of meetings for next fiscal year, that's when we will put out the schedule of regular board meetings where they will be, the simultaneous joint meetings will be then our regular schedule going forward after June.
That's great. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, could I just ask Mike a quick question? What is, that was on my calendar, we're supposed to go to the Fire Authority office. Are we not doing that now?
Right, so the location is going to be here. We had expected that the boardroom expansion would be under construction this month, but since because of the protests, that slipped.
Okay, good, thanks.
Okay, thank you. All right, so that brings us to item 6, which is a joint closed session.
Yes, Mr. Chair, the boards will be conferring in joint closed session with legal counsel regarding existing litigation, the Cohen and Borsuk matters listed on the agenda, and also for the purpose of public employee performance evaluation regarding the position of Chief Executive Officer. We do not anticipate reportable action.
Thank you.